All right, I'm happy to meet you face to face. I want to thank you for wanting to spend some time on me this afternoon.
No problem.
So let's roll into it. Joe, you are the guitar player in quite a few bands: Shantalla, Seed, Pagan Folk, and Omnia. Any other bands you're playing in?
Now I've played in a couple in the past, but those are the three worth talking about anyway. and,
All right.
yeah,
And which one would have had the biggest impact on your life so far?
I think definitely Omnia. Omnia kind of when I joined them, I discovered this whole scene across Europe, the pagan folk scene, the medieval scene, the whole fantasy, gothic scene. So most of that was completely underground. And okay, I was playing on the folk scene with Shantalla, but it's like two different orbits. They cross in a certain place, but for the most part, it's completely different. I've always been an alternative person. Like I was into metal when I was 13, and I think when I joined Omnia, I suddenly discovered I had a tribe. I kept meeting all these like-minded people, and I thought, yeah, this is where I want to be. And Omnia's music was also original, whereas Shantalla, a lot of it is it's traditional. So as a guitar player, Omnia was both cool and then yeah, eye-opening. So that's definitely had the biggest influence.
Very big life changer. A little bit more rock and roll than Shantalla, I guess.
Very much so, yeah, yeah. And as I say, I like when you look out and you see all the people with dreadlocks and tattoos and piercings and so on. You think, yes, they're my people.
Do you feel like the scene of the pagan folk, medieval folk, fantasy folk has changed a lot over the last few decades?
It probably has. I mean, I started playing in that scene about 2004. And at the time, I don't think there was that many bands. There was a lot of kind of bagpipe and drum bands on the scene. But I think Omnia was the first one really with Omnia and Faun had a lot of like interesting music and using instruments like harp and nickel harpa and hurdy-gurdy and that. So I thought that was really interesting, and there's a whole generation that's come up behind them. I mean, there were lots of bands have come up over the last 15 years, and I think the scene has widened. You've had a lot of cross fertilization between Scandinavian music, Celtic music, and original stuff from all over the place. So yeah, I mean, I think the scene is a lot bigger and more interesting now. And as I said, bands like Seed would have grown up listening to Omnia, so it's quite fun
True.
to actually be playing in one of those bands.
Yeah, I can imagine that having quite a lot of impact on the younger generations. I
Yeah.
can imagine also series like Vikings and Game of Thrones having a huge influence on the scene nowadays.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed is the pirate scene suddenly appeared about 4 or 5 years ago, and all the festivals suddenly had a pirate stage, and there were pirate bands and stuff. And yeah, the Viking thing, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, all of those things have had an influence. I love going to places like Castlefest, and like 99% of the people look like they've just stepped off a film set. So I love that.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time nowadays to be a geek. 10 years ago, you would have ended up with your head in a toilet bowl. Now you can go to huge medieval fantasy gatherings.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that scene in Europe, and it's cool that it's still underground. I mean, you talk to people and they've never heard of it, so you tell them there are festivals with between 10 and 15,000 people, and they're going like, really? Like, so in a way, it's nice to keep it to ourselves.
True, it's not easy to keep it a secret anymore.
uh,
Now, you just told me you're a little bit of an alternative when it comes to your music, but you're also alternative when outside of your music career. When you were working for the European Commission, you were one of the most rock and roll officials working there, right?
I guess so, yeah. and, I was certainly easily recognizable in the Berlaymont, which is the European Commission headquarters. I think I must have been the only male there who didn't wear a suit and a tie, and I would dress the same. When I was playing with Omnia, for example, I mean, I dressed the same off stage. and I never changed for work or anything like that. So I was very easily identified. You know, if somebody wanted to find me, they would just look for the guy in black who wasn't wearing a suit. Yeah, and that's been quite cool. I mean, I work in the environment department in the EU, so I think a lot of the time when you're talking to journalists and students and so on, they're quite impressed to meet somebody who's not wearing a suit and who speaks normal language and, you know, behaves normally. And yes, but I don't think there are too many others around. But it's been fun times. I mean, it's quite a good reflection on the European Commission that they employed somebody like me. And I worked for two commissioners who loved the fact that I played music because it kept me in the real world. I think a lot of people who work in the EU live in a kind of bubble with other EU people, and I don't. And I don't circulate in that circle. I mean, when I go home, I switch off completely, and yeah, my life is music. And I'm a guitar player who works for the European Commission, not a European Commission official who plays the guitar. So, but it is funny when people ask you sometimes, "Oh, do you play in the pub, like in the Irish pub?" And I go, "Well, no." And it's hard to come across like as not being big-headed or something. Like you try and discreetly tell people that you play like all over Europe and to huge crowds, and you have lots of albums out and fans and stuff. You know, I just ignore that. But a lot of people know in the commission. I mean, commissioners have even come to see Omnia playing. So that was quite nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I can also imagine you were working for the environmental department. A lot of your audience, people who love folk music, usually are very woke when it comes to the environment. So I guess you could take a lot of experience from your contact with the audience to your job back then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would get loads of feedback from people who knew nothing about politics or about the EU or anything else. And like you see what works on the ground and what doesn't, what people are actually thinking. I mean, it's tricky in the EU, like any government. I mean, it's not a government, but within every government, the environment department is always kind of one of the minor ones, like the economy, finance, you know, those are the ones that really have the clout. And it's not much different at EU level. So it's been kind of frustrating for the last 15, 20 years trying to get environmental things through the EU. And, you know, you're told, oh, there's a financial crisis, you know, we need jobs, we need growth, you know, we don't need the green burden on industry and all this crap. But yeah, you just have to keep fighting the good fight. There are people who do it with NGOs and people who join Extinction Rebellion and Greenpeace and so on. And there are those of us who are on the other side, like working from the inside, trying to influence policies and persuade people, you know, the way forward is green. And we can't keep living on this planet, like with so many people, we can't keep living the same lifestyle. We can't keep extracting resources from the earth. We can't keep chopping trees down. We can't keep using all of the land for agriculture or cities or whatever it is. But it's been an uphill struggle. But we'll see when this pandemic finishes whether people revert to type and, you know, it's all about the economy again, or whether people say, actually, we need to change the way we live. So, yeah, we'll see.
Well, it's a very motivating and energetic speech. So it's the first time I actually get to delve this deep with one of the musicians I interview into those consequences of the coronavirus. So cheers to you, Joe.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could talk for half an hour on that, but I won't.
Well, thank you very much. Now, the latest band you've joined is Seed Pagan Folk. And most of those members are quite a bit younger than you. So does that make you kind of a mentor to them?
I suppose in some way it does. I mean, it was interesting with Seed. Obviously, I knew they existed, but I met three of them when we did a gig with Omnia last year in Zellup. We put together a special Omnia show with 10 people in the band, and three of them were from Seed. We got on really well off stage, on stage, and we kept up the contact. And yeah, I mean, it's weird to describe how I got involved with Seed when basically I just had a revelation at one point that I should be in this band. And I just said to them, I'm sorry, guys, but like, I have to join your band. They were saying, really? So it was a win-win. Like they've been, some of them have been fans of Omnia since like they were 12 or 15 or whatever. And it's funny, like when discussing with them, you know, over the years, the number of times they would have seen Omnia and so on, and it's been fun. I mean, I've recorded a lot. I've played all over the place. I know the ins and outs of the music business, and so I think that's just useful for them. You know, the fact that there's somebody older in the band who's been there and done that and so on. So, but music is a funny thing. I mean, in Ireland, it's not strange to see a 12-year-old playing with a 70-year-old, for example. It's just music. And you have whole families playing music, and if you go to festivals there, you'll see people of all ages. And I think music brings everybody together. It's a leveler. If you can play, it doesn't matter what age you are, and people hang out together in our scene. I mean, acoustic music seems to do that. You don't find it in rock bands, but you do find it in our scene.
Yeah, it's a very close scene. I feel like if you go to a festival, there's always people you've seen at another festival when it comes to folk festivals.
Drives my wife crazy sometimes. You know, I go to a festival and we're trying to walk somewhere, and it takes about 20 minutes to walk about 50 meters because you keep meeting people you know and haven't seen for a while, and you have to say hello and shake hands and talk. So, but that's what I like. That I mean, I think it's great. Yeah, for the people who go to the festivals too, they see each other at other festivals, and all the bands mingle, and like. I've been lucky enough I know dozens of people in different bands now. It's great.
All right. That's lovely. Now, you just mentioned Ireland. That's the place where you were born and raised. You came to Belgium for your job. Do you go back to Ireland regularly? And what do you miss most about the country?
I really miss the sea, the ocean, and the clean air, and the scenery, and the friendly people, and the good humor, and the relaxation, and everything else. Ireland's a great place. I go there. My parents are both dead, so I don't have immediate family there. I have a lot of cousins, but my son Shane is 10 now. Ever since he was born, we go to Ireland maybe once a year, maybe once every 18 months. And lately, we're planning to buy a house in the west of Ireland next year, so we're going to move there. So yeah, I try and get back there when I can. But I have family in Poland, family in France, and family in Wales. So yeah, the summers you're trying to juggle between, yes, this year we have to see my wife's parents or see my daughter and the grandchildren. I have 2 grandchildren, and my sister lives down near Bordeaux. So yeah, it's a juggling act trying to see everybody and keep everybody happy, and also do things like go to Ireland for just ourselves.
So it's true what they say, the entire world is actually secretly Irish.
It's, I think we certainly punch above our weight. I think there are tens of millions of Irish people all over the world who are kind of secret Irish people. And I think the music it's one of the most popular indigenous musics, if you can call it that. I mean, we've heard people playing Irish music all the way like from Japan to South America. And I'm not sure that happens with other countries' culture, like the way it spreads. Yeah, because I mean, Ireland is people have always been prepared to emigrate from Ireland, and when they do, they bring the culture with them, and whether it's just the pubs or the music or the humor or whatever. But yeah, we're social people.
Wonderful. Now, it's also a little bit a theme of the new album from Shantalla, From the East Unto the West. Can you tell us a bit more about what the album stands for?
In a way, it just stands for the spread of Celtic music and Celtic culture. I mean, the Celts came from the East and spread across Europe over a couple of centuries. And yeah, settled eventually, like in the West, in Scotland and Brittany and Ireland were the last resorts. But the music has also spread to North America and to other places, and there's been a lot of Eastern European influence in Celtic music in the last 20, 30 years, thanks largely to Planxty and the Boppy Band and those guys bringing back bouzouki's from places like Bulgaria, Romania, etc. So our album is really just it's a mixture of original tunes and things that are Irish, Scottish, Breton, Canadian, American. So it's really just about the kind of pan-Celtic culture. And we thought the title was nice. We've done it before. Our second album was called 7 Evenings, 7 Mornings, which is a line from one of the songs on that album. And From the East Unto the West is a line from one of the songs on this album, Captain Ward. And we thought that sounds nice and it fits with what we're doing, and that's what we'll call it.
Oh, it's a very creative, very well-found name. Do you get to be very creative with music? Because I can imagine it's very hard to do something refreshing with traditionals.
It isn't. It isn't. I mean, we've made 4 albums now, and with the songs, we always try to find songs that a lot of other people have not done before. So we're constantly digging either for old songs or new songs. And with those, we'll strip them down. Like we might hear a song and then never listen to it again. Like what we would do would be we write down the lyrics, we know the melody, and then I would start the songs with just guitar and Helen singing, and we come up with our own version that works. And then the other guys would come in and start composing like intros and bridges and all of this kind of stuff. So by the time we're finished, our version of the song doesn't sound like anybody else's song. So it's very creative from that point of view. The traditional tunes that we do, I mean, the guys play them in a straightforward way, but very dynamically. And we've got a lot of instruments in Shantalla, so we can do uilleann pipes, accordion, fiddle, viola, whistles of all kinds. So in the studio, you can get all of that together. So you've got 5 or 6 lead instruments, and then we try to. I'm from a rock background, so my backing would be a bit different from what you would get in some other Irish bands. And you also have Simon on bouzouki and guitar. So I think we've created our own sound over the years. I think if you stick on a Shantalla track, usually you can say, "Oh, that's Shantalla," because you have that distinctive sound.
All right, yeah, I can imagine. If you start the songs with the guitar, of course, the guitar gives a lot of color. You have a huge impact on the songs then.
Yeah, I mean, I think when the first Shantalla album came out, a lot of people thought, "Whoa, the guitar sound on that is really different and big and good, and it's like a rock guitar, even if it's acoustic." And I know that's what got Omnia interested in Shantalla, because how I ended up in Omnia is a whole other story. But they were fans of Shantalla, and what they were really fans of was the guitar playing and the muscle and the drive in the guitar playing. So.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I bumped into Steve and Jenny once with Shantalla, and Jenny used to be at quite a lot of our early gigs, and that's where the connection came. So I think it was my guitar playing actually ended up getting me into Omnia in the longer term.
All right, that's already very interesting. Now, from your album, if you had to pick one track that you could make everybody in the world listen to, which track would you choose?
Personally, I'd probably pick Inish Avalok. It's one of the longer sets. It's a set of 4 tunes. The first tune is called Inish Avalok, and we learned it from a Faun album because we were going to be playing at Castlefest with Fiona as a guest. So we picked a Faun tune and we learned it, and she picked a song by Shantalla, and she learned that. So then we did a guest slot together. But after Castlefest, we thought we actually liked that tune a lot, and we looked into it a bit deeper. We put our own stamp on it, and then we added a couple of bits to it. And for me, I really like that set. Every time I listen to it, I go, "Whoa, that really rocks." So, but yeah, I mean, I like all of the album. But if I was to pick one track and somebody put a gun to my head and said, "This is the only track you're allowed to play," then it would be that one. So.
Okay, it's a very varied track. I've listened to it yesterday, and it is very appealing. It's not hard at all to listen through the entire song, while some traditional Irish tunes, for some people who listen to it, can get quite dragging if they stay in the same cadence the entire time.
We spend a lot of time arranging our stuff, and quite a few reviewers have commented on that, and on this album and the previous one, that the arrangements are sophisticated. Like, it's not just everybody starts playing and you play for 6 minutes or whatever, and then everybody stops again. There's a lot of contrast. There's a lot of changing of instruments, slowing down, speeding up, thinning the mix out and then coming back in again. So we've always spent a lot of time on that, and we could spend hours with final mixes of things, making sure that it remains interesting to the listener.
All right. So you picked up the guitar, obviously, as an instrument. When did that happen? Around what age?
When I was a teenager, I would have been maybe 15 when I persuaded my dad to buy me a crappy guitar, and I taught myself how to play it. So yeah, I was inspired by rock guitar players at the time. I mean, in Ireland, there were no live bands that weren't Irish, so there was no venues for like Led Zeppelin or somebody to come and play in Ireland. So we had to make do with Rory Gallagher, Tin Lizzy, Horselips, bands like that. and the guitar playing was fantastic. Rory Gallagher was a fantastic guitar player, and as a 13-year-old and 14-year-old, I was inspired. Like, I really want to be like that guy. I want to be up on a stage playing the guitar with people enjoying it. And yeah, I taught myself how to play the guitar, got a rock band together with some other kids from my school, and yeah, that was how it all started. But I'm 50 something now and still have never had a guitar lesson. So.
Well, you do it wonderfully still then. So with you, it's straight from the heart. A lot of experience, all those years of playing, always put together in what you do.
Yeah, I try. I think people tell me I have a distinctive style, and no matter which band I'm playing with, they're able to say, "Oh, that's Joe playing the guitar." So that was the aim. I mean, there are guitar players who want to copy other people. I've never wanted to do that, and I tell my son the same thing. Like, when he plays along with things, I always tell him, don't try to just learn what they're playing. Try to imagine that you're in the band and that you have to come up with something and like justify your position in the band. So that's always been my attitude. I don't want to copy other people, especially on Irish tunes and things like that. I would always want to come up with my own thing.
Okay, that's very nice advice for any young musicians who might be watching this video later. So that's great advice. Now, when it comes to your music career, which has been really nice, really great, do you still have any unfulfilled dreams or big ambitions that you'd like to pursue?
Not a huge amount. I'd like to see Seed take off because I think the people in Seed deserve it. I think they have huge potential. And some of the things they've been writing over the last year, 2 years, I think they have huge potential. And I would like to see them go much bigger than they are now. But no, I mean, I've played a lot of big festivals. I've toured. I would like to go to America sometime with a band. But other than that, I'm kind of happy. I don't plan to stop playing anytime soon. I've got at least another 10, 20 years to go. So I'd be quite happy to keep playing big festivals and maybe travel a bit more. The furthest I've got so far is Siberia. We were there with Shantalla. Wow. 2 years ago. And that was really cool. So yeah, I'd like a bit more of that would be nice.
I can imagine. Is Western European folk music very popular out there in Russia?
I don't think so. I think they saw Shantalla playing on Castlefest TV, believe it or not. One of the things that we played there, and they asked us to go. We were the only Western band playing at this festival, which was down near the Mongolian border, and there were 15,000 people there. And all of the other acts were either from Russia or countries like Georgia or Kazakhstan, and 1 or 2 from Japan. So we were the only Western European band there. But when we got there, we were very surprised that there were actually Russians who had our music and who were Shantalla fans and who played and who did Irish dancing and all kinds of stuff, like in the middle of nowhere. So that was quite eye-opening for us. We ended up playing a session with some Russians who knew our music.
All right, that's pretty great experience. Wow. I don't think anybody here starts a band thinking with the idea of, you know what, maybe one day I end up on the Mongolian border in Russia.
Yeah, no, that was a fascinating trip, but it's been fun. I mean, we've played all over the place. We used to tour Italy a lot, and we've played Portugal a few times, and I've discovered parts of Germany I would never have known existed until I started playing with Omnia. Like, you come across beautiful parts of the world that you would never hear of if you weren't in a band. So yeah, that kind of thing. More of that, bring it on. So.
All right. Now, a very cliche question up next. What is a song you wish you would have written?
A tricky one, but there's none that I really think, oh, I wish I'd written that song. But I think of all of the things I've been involved with, I think Alive by Omnia is definitely one. Obviously, I was involved in its creation. I was in the band when we were writing it, but for me, I love the recording of that on the Alive album. So for me, that was the second full studio album with Omnia. And there are 2 tracks on that, Witch's Brew and Alive, which I can play over and over and over again and never get sick of them, because I think the lyrics and the structure and the music, the recording, everything about those 2 songs for me is absolutely perfect. So yeah, if I could have put my name to those, it would have been nice, but but yeah, no, I've no particular songs that I wish, oh yes, I really would have liked to have written.
Right, I'll make sure when I post this video online, I put those songs underneath it, so people who don't know Omnia yet can still check them out and check out some.
There's a couple of other versions of Alive, like there's one from much later, from later versions of the band that I wasn't in, where they have a live version of it, and there's another radio edit with percussion added and the vocals were changed. But for me, the first recording of that is just perfect. It's I don't think I could better it at all. You know, so.
All right. Now, a very prevalent theme in both Seed and Omnia is paganism. How much of a pagan do you identify as?
I guess I've always kind of been outside the religious thing. Like, I mean, I went to a Catholic school, like 95% of Irish people, but I lost any interest in religion, like when I was about 12. But paganism, knowing the kind of Irish culture and pre-Christian history and so on, I've always been attracted by all of the fairy forts and stone circles and dolmens and standing stones. So New Grange, like I've always been drawn to that place. When I came to Belgium, the first place that really called out to me was the Ardennes. I've been to Stonehenge several times. So I've always felt the kind of nature and earth pull. And when I got into Omnia, obviously that became much more. But we have an altar. My wife is the same. Like, I mean, she regarded herself as pagan before we ever met. We have an altar in our house. Yeah, my son has grown up with all of this stuff, you know, the pentagrams and, you know, a tree of life and lighting candles and giving little offerings to the gods and doing our ceremonies every year. Like we usually observe the different pagan calendar points of the years, whether it's Bealtaine or Lunasa or the solstices or equinoxes and so on. So we've always had that. I mean, we don't do it in a kind of, you know, orthodox way. This is how it has to be. It's more of a feeling of connection to the past and to what other humans have always kind of felt and energy-wise and so on. So yeah, if you ask my son, are his parents weirdos, he will definitely say, oh, yes.
But he loves it.
That's a good thing. Weirdo is a good description in our household.
Would be boring quite otherwise, right?
Yeah.
All right, this was quite an interesting talk. I've loved talking to you. I got one big question left, of course. I can't evade asking it. How did Corona affect you when it comes to your music occupation?
Well, it's interesting because that leads me to something else which I wanted to mention. But Corona, I mean, we've been on lockdown here for about 4 weeks now. And where I work in the commission, they've had us teleworking for, I think, even longer, maybe 5 weeks. So that's okay. Normally I telework 2 days a week anyway. So I'm used to being at home. I'm used to having a good computer connection and so on. It's not too bad. I mean, I made it up to Holland to rehearse with Seed just before the lockdown, and I'm really glad I did, because we put a few things in place. We've been in the middle of recording an album with Seed, and it's half finished, and we haven't been able to finish it because of the lockdown. But we hope to bring out a single in about 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks' time, and it's something we recorded last year, so it's fully recorded, fully mixed, it's mastered. And we've been waiting to try and put the perfect video together and to do the new album and then to have the usual, you know, band thing of you have your single coming out and then the album, you do a nice video and everything is nicely planned. But with what's going on at the moment, I think we're just having to go and improvise. So we're putting a video together at the moment of bits of us recorded in our homes, bits from footage that's already on YouTube from different gigs, and bits of nature clips and things that we can put together. And we're quite excited about the song. It's called Het Vergeten Folk, and the lyrics are in Dutch and Irish. So we're not sure any other band has ever done this. And,
you do the Irish vocals?
Sarah sings in Irish. Sarah sings with a Nuna as well. And the first time I ever heard Sarah speak, I wasn't looking at her, and I heard this voice, and I thought, oh, there's somebody Irish here. And I turned around, and it was Sarah. And it turns out she can pronounce Irish very well. She can sing really well. So I do a little bit of speaking in Irish on this track, but we're actually really, I think this is a really, really good song. It's about the forgotten people who are the fairy tale creatures, like trolls and elves and all this stuff. And the whole concept is, if parents don't keep reading to their children or introducing them to the fairy folk, that they will all start gradually to disappear. It's a bit like American Gods, Neil Gaiman's book about, if people don't believe in the gods anymore, they get smaller and they end up living in a flat somewhere in Minnesota. But yeah, we're quite excited about this single, and it'll be curious. We're curious to see the reaction to people with the fact that, first of all, the song is in Dutch, and secondly, parts of the song are in Irish. And I'd be very curious to see the reaction in Ireland to it, and also in Holland and Flanders.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Watch out for it. We'll start announcing it, but we hope to get it out within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, maybe.
All right. Sounds very lovely. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience that might be watching this video when it comes out?
I don't think so. Just stay safe out there. And yeah, I mean, any musicians that are looking, I hope to see you all at some point at some festival somewhere. Hopefully something will survive this summer. It'd be great if Castlefest happens this summer, or Zelab, or any of the big ones. But otherwise, just take care, stay safe. Yeah, and do your best to get through it. I'm in an easy situation here. Like, I'm living with people I love and have a nice house and a garden, and the weather's great, and I have a park just down the road where I can go and walk. And so yeah, I still have a job, so I have money coming into the house. So yeah, I have absolutely no complaints, but I can understand a lot of people who would be out there, especially people on their own or people living in small apartments. Yeah, just hang in there, and hopefully it'll be over sometime in the next few weeks or month or two. We'll see.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Joe. It was a wonderful talk. I hope you will get well through this period, but as I can hear, that won't be much of a problem. And I hope the summer will be all great and lots of good gigs for you and your bands.
Yeah, let's hope for the best anyway, and let's hope this weather keeps up all through the summer, and then when this nonsense finishes, that everybody gets out and has a good time. But yeah, thanks for talking. It was a pleasure for me anyway. So
thank you very much.